I'm Tom Klein, a Better Vantage Point. I don't have to agree, but I do have to comply, said an old employee and friend of mine named Hank. He said it with a wry smile whenever he didn't agree with something I asked him to do. Then he'd do it because I'd ask him, and then he'd laugh quietly to himself. So who really wants to comply? No one, including your dog, when you tell him to sit or stay. As humans, we find it distasteful to have to comply with whatever someone else is telling us. However, a lack of compliance will cost you in dollars, in publicity, and even in reputation. While it may not be your favorite, a lack of compliance will put you in the crosshairs. How can you get in trouble? Good question. Let's start with the biggest problem first. If something criminal happens in your store and you don't know about it, pleading unaware or ignorant of the situation is an ineffective defense. Chapter 8 of the annotated 2018 United States Sentencing Guidelines clearly states, quote, "This chapter is designed so the sanctions imposed upon organizations and their agents, taken together, will provide just punishment, adequate deterrence, and incentives for organizations to maintain internal mechanisms for preventing, detecting, and reporting criminal conduct," unquote. It continues, "The two factors that mitigate the ultimate punishment of an organization are one, the existence of an effective compliance and ethics program, and two, self-reporting, cooperation, or acceptance of responsibility. So if you'd like to avoid serious problems, you should have a robust compliance program, and according to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, a compliance management system. Furthermore, quote, these guidelines offer incentives to organizations to reduce and ultimately eliminate criminal conduct by providing a structural foundation from which an organization may self-police its own conduct through an effective compliance and ethics program," unquote. So how do you provide a structural foundation? First, you must decide that you're committed to implementing a robust compliance program and stick with it. It's a paradigm shift that would likely change some of the operations of your dealership. Embrace the change. There are 7 components of a strong compliance program. 1. Establishing written policies and procedures. 2. Designating a compliance officer who will be responsible. 3. Establishing and maintaining effective training and education. 4. Effective lines of communication to the owners. 5. Internal monitoring and auditing of transactions. 6. Enforcement of standards through well-publicized disciplinary guidelines. And 7. Prompt response to detect through corrective action. These 7 are clearly important. The dealer or owner must participate here or the whole program falls apart and nothing's achieved. Alternatively, these functions can be handled by third parties if the dealership doesn't want to take on the time commitment or the responsibility. The bottom line, someone has to do the work of compliance or you open yourself up to liability. Here are additional examples. The IRS FinCEN Form 8300. This is the cash reporting requirement for notifying the IRS for any payments in excess of $10,000 cash, though there's tremendous nuance to this law. The IRS website says a person may be subject to criminal penalties for willfully failing to file a Form 8300, willfully filing a false or fraudulent Form 8300, or trying to stop a Form 8300 from being filed, or setting up, helping to set up, or trying to set up a transaction in a way that would make it unnecessary to file the form. Penalties depend on the total revenue of the company, but are not to exceed $3.339 million per calendar year, and criminal penalties include imprisonment for up to 5 years plus the cost of prosecution. Make sure you're including various forms of cash and counting it as cash, traveler's checks, cashier's checks, or bank cash with no lien recorded. These are all cash in the eyes of the IRS. Next, how does the Fair Credit Reporting Act impact dealers? Let's just focus on one item within this complex law. Are you sending a denial letter to every person in the dealership whose credit you pull? You're supposed to send a letter stating that the dealership itself is not extending credit to the borrower and that there's a third party who's providing financing. There's safe harbor language you're supposed to use according to the code, and the safe harbor refers to the exact phraseology the law requires you to use. Omission of this language is a serious no-no. Penalties for willful, negligent non-compliance may include actual damages, punitive damages, and attorney's fees. Hank was right, you don't have to agree, but you do have to comply unless you want to open up your checkbook. I'm Tom Klein of Better Vantage Point. We are a unique company providing dealership dispute, compliance, and risk mitigation solutions to automobile and recreational vehicle dealerships throughout the United States. As a car dealership expert and former owner with 30 years of experience, I know how many ways things can go sideways in a dealership and what a dealer can do to prevent it. Thanks for watching and seeing things from a better vantage point.